Go ahead, John.
Well, yeah, well, this is again, I will use that word every time, fascinating, because after all this year, and we have the opportunity to share our way of thinking in coaching. And I will say one thing. So when I mentioned Bobby Orr, I just want to mm, sort of clarify this, Wally. I will mention Pele or the older players who learn their craft in the street, in shinny hockey, playing in the ponds or in the lakes, because I did that too when I learned hockey. And I think what I was trying to say is, me as a coach, how I can get the best out of a player and how I can transform these youth players and free their minds so they can be as great as the best we have had in the past or right now. We mentioned the NHL. I will say we get the best, and the kids will look into those role models to play the game. My question becomes this every time to coaches: what are we doing to help these kids to achieve that? So this is where the two worlds of traditional coaching and what I will say this more holistic approach to coaching playing games goes. So I want to clarify one thing here. When, as Richard said, I do coach games. I only use games. I've done it for the last 30 years. But I think, as Dean say, you have to make a choice. How exactly you're going to manage that? And when I say games, 1 versus 1 is a game for me. 2 versus 1 is a game for me. 2 versus 2 is a game for me. 3 versus 2, 3 versus 3, 4 versus 3. And hockey will stop at 5 versus 5. They all games. It's how we promote this approach. Rick said that he used drills. Great. But at the end of the day, if you do 1 versus 1 in a drill situation, it becomes a game. Now, my approach is, okay, this is the challenge you have on 1 versus 1. Wally, you just mentioned. For me, it's a battle. It's a competition. It's a way of doing it. And if you think about repetition, you have to be realistic. You have to have two nets or one net, one direction where they can fight and find a solution to resolve that equation of 1 versus 1. And if you do it for 8 minutes, in my book, it doesn't work. So you have to do it at least 20 minutes. All the kids involved, 30 minutes. That's how I divide my training sometimes. And you talk, I think we mentioned anticipation here. The game is about anticipation in transition. It's about transition. You have to anticipate this transition. That's what you need to teach the kids. You have to get them going and real game setup time so they can learn to make this transition. They can see them coming to them and they can react to it. Principles of offense at any level are almost the same. In soccer, hockey, they are similar. They are the same. Nothing changed. We talk about triangles. Wally, you mentioned triangles. It's the same everywhere. They all the same. So when we approach the game, everybody's experience, as you have and everybody have here, you decide what to do. I will preach what I do because that's what it had worked for me for many years, and I've seen it with my kids and many of the kids I coach over the years. They have become great players, very good players, playing at national level, playing at World Cups. So, which approach is the best? I We can debate all day, and everybody will have their 2 cents on it. But I think, just to make clear, the purpose of what you do have to be clear, and you have to be able to set it up. And if it works, you know, great. I mean, that's what you do. For me, if I like I say, we can talk about breakouts in hockey. We talk about 1 versus 1, possession, movement as a group, collectively moving as a group. How you do that? Well, I do have games for that. I have designed over the years a lot of stuff that I believe work, and the kids love it, and they do um, understand the concepts of transition, of movement as a collective group, and that's what I think is the key for me. Is how you learn these things, how you teach them, how you approach them. You can break it down in many pieces. That's okay. Do they need to know? Maybe not. I think you need to experiment with all these, and then you and everyone have done that. So I think with time you refine your craft, your coaching, and then you start going that way. So I've been working on this for, like I say, in both in hockey and soccer for the last almost 35 years. So yeah, that's an approach, like everyone. So I think hope one day we can do a clinic together and all together go to a nice rink and get, I don't know, everyone, 60 kids, and let's go work and let's go put all in place and design things. I think that's the fascinating thing. It's always a quest.
John, we've all been working on things for as long as you. My concern is the coaches who are just maybe in their fifth year of coaching, and they might be in their seventh or 10th year of coaching, and they still don't understand the value of competitive games, varied numbers to teach. So my concern with the coaches, and I may be generalizing here, but I would rather they played varieties of games, whole length, half ice, end zone, corners, numbered numerical variations, kept score. The game will teach. And that's what I'm going to try to do at the U13 level, Tom. I'm watching these stations and these drill repetitions, and there is going to be progress, but they just want to play, and they will think because they're thinking on their own. I think we have to know more about the thinking process than we do about the teaching process. Just beginning to understand how they think and figure things out. Richard, go ahead.
Thanks. I mentioned earlier about leadership, and as an illustration of the issue we're facing. So, this lofty group of hockey brains here with 10,000 years of experience, like, we're so far removed from the average coach with 4 years experience or 8 years experience. So how do we get our messages to them? Last night, I'm leaving the rink.
I'm losing, Richard.
I beg your pardon?
You got cut out quite a few times that first.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I hear
that, yeah.
Okay. So I'm leaving the rink last night. A guy is coming out that I've known for a few years. He took his HP, not this past year summer, but the summer before. So 2022. He said the very first thing that the person in charge of the HP said to the gathered throngs, 70% of you are not going to pass. So he came to me yesterday as I'm going in the rink. He's coming outside. And he says, "Richard, you've done all this. You've been through this. What kind of a message does it send when they're telling us from the outset that 70% of us are not going to pass?" And then he says, I'm writing my answers to the HP questions. It's going to be 150 pages long." So I said, "Well, Tom, that's not his real name. Tom, why do you make it 150 pages long? It's not a doctoral dissertation. Call me and we'll whittle it down to something usable for your 13-year-olds. He's coaching 13-year-olds AAA or 14-year-olds AAA. So he says, I was really upset by that. I went, I don't have a chance of passing? Like 70% are not going to pass? And he says he talked to another guy who was at it this past summer. They got the same message. Well, what's the point? I don't get it. I didn't get it. So,
Richard, I question the course conductor and their knowledge and their ability to inspire coaches to think and do things uniquely, differently, and better. And
well,
that's what's happened. It's become a canned process with deliberate repetition and no thinking. And back in the day, Richard, I don't know what you did with your HP1. Mine was over 100 pages long. And all it was a chance to collate everything I knew about the game and have it on a file. So it was a review of my library of information that was subconsciously stored. I put it to paper. That made it a good exercise. And most of the people I know, like Dale Henwood and those guys that wrote the test in those times, I'm sure when you wrote it, Richard, yours was 100 pages long. But today we understand as an exercise at that point in their career, they have to gather everything they know, extrapolate it. They have a library, they have it on file. They're starting to learn.
I think mine was only about 90 pages. I'm sorry, I fell short, but that was in the old level 5 days.
Yes.
But what I mean, the requirements for everything now is different. You know, university, high school, graduate, it's all the requirements are different. I'm not questioning whether or not something should be different. I'm just saying that, come on, guys, you've been sending the same message for 15, 18 years. You know, do you not look in the mirror and ask yourself, why do we have a 70% failure rate? You know, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got.
Rick, any comments? Can you get us on some kind of a track again?
Well, one thought that I've had just listening here, Wally, one of the first things I do with any new group that I take on is I do an assessment of just where they're at in terms of their knowledge and their experience. What do they really know about the game? And a good example is that you brought up Dave King teaching puck protection in stages. You hear coaches all the time, protect the puck, protect the puck. Do they actually know that the player knows what they mean by that? They may have some impression of it, but until you go back and explain it all and give everybody the benefit of the basics, it's just words. And anytime I have done that exercise, and it's not only related to puck protection, but virtually all of the skills, passing right down to, I don't care what group it is I've worked with, even at the midget AAA level, I've had them lined up in pairs and going through the exercise just to understand what the mechanics are, what the expectation is, how you go about it to get the best result. And then I can confidently remind them for the rest of the time I have with them that you're not doing it correctly, you can do it better, and so on and so forth. But give them the benefit of what your expectation is in all of these areas. I don't see a lot of coaches doing that. Any group that I've done it with, once we go through the exercise, Wally, you talked about battle drills. Okay, so how to use your body, how to use your knees, how to use your core strength versus your arm and shoulder strength. All of these things get broken down, they get explained, they get an opportunity to experience it, and lo and behold, the group as a whole and individuals to varying degrees suddenly become a lot better at things that you thought they knew. We made an assumption because they're at midget or U18 or U15 that they've done all these things along the way. And Wally, I can recall you making some comments over the time here about guys in HP1 when you challenge them on this. Well, they should know this by now. Well, until we as coaches dealing with that group directly know what they know, we can't assume anything. So we need to go back and determine with each group we work with, what is their base? What do they know? Get everybody on a common page, a common understanding.
That's a great point, Rick. Everything you said is bang on, and we are forgetting one really key thing here. That under the current structure of certification, and here we are digressing into another realm, but under the current structure of certification, you enter the certification level at the level you are coaching. You need to have no other coach training or education. If you're coaching a junior A team and you're 26 years old, you take the HP to coach junior A, and you've never taken a coaching clinic in your life. So they don't know what they don't, all they know is what they did when they were 18, right? If you're coaching a competitive hockey team in Canada, U15A, AA, you need to have had no other coach training, certification, or education before jumping into that development one certification and the one practice evaluation that they do. So when they eliminated the graduated licensing, I guess we could call it, we in HEO were the last branch in Canada to have it, where you had to go from level to level to level, kind of like high school to, BA to grad and so on. They eliminated that because they felt that coaches didn't want to sit through, 8 hours of instruction on basic stuff in their coaching junior A, instead of addressing what the needs were of coaches, a junior A or AAA. So what you have now, like the guy Tom I bumped into last night, he's coaching 13-year-olds. He's writing the same exam as the junior A guys it's their full-time job.